a lot of friends that know me well. They're like, "Hey, good luck on your new healthy home building endeavor," and within the construction industry, because they know what the pushback's gonna be. It's like a holistic home. What the heck is that?
Hello, I'm Dr. Wendy Myers. Welcome to the Myers Detox Podcast. And on this show, we talk about everything related to heavy metal and chemical toxicity, the health issues caused by these toxins. And we also discuss anti-aging and bioenergetics and more advanced topics in health that you'll find on other shows. And today we're going to be talking about non-toxic home design. We talk about mold, lighting, EMF, air and water filtration, and non-toxic building materials. And my guest today, Brian Johnson, he is an expert in non-toxic home building, building homes from the ground up, but also consulting with people on their current homes and how to improve them, based on their priorities and their budget. And so we discuss things like non-toxic building materials like concrete-based construction methods like ICF and ICCF that offer superior fire, earthquake, hurricane, and mold resistance compared to traditional wood framing. And we talk about how mold grows so easily in most of the materials that are used for traditional construction in our homes today. We talk about proper EMF mitigation and how that requires addressing electrical fields from the wiring in your home, the AC magnetics and how the DC is turned to AC converted. We talk about radio frequency and dirty electricity through design and technology choices. We talk about lighting and how advanced LED lighting systems can support circadian rhythms without the EMF and flicker issues of old technologies. So when you have a dimmer switch, you get a lot of flickering and high EMF output from light bulbs, strangely. And we also talk about, and how lighting systems like Color Beam use low voltage Cat6 wiring to eliminate EMF. And we also talk about whole home water filtration and restructuring devices as well. And also how new power management systems can automatically cut power to unused circuits, which means less EMF in your environment where you're sleeping and less stress on your nervous system. So really, really good show today for anyone that's, looking to build a home or that is looking to get ideas, looking to improve your home environment to make it healthier. Great show today. So our guest, Brian Johnson, is a licensed general contractor, project manager, healthy home builder, and building biologist with over 23 years of experience in the construction industry. He's an experienced general contractor with deep understanding of building science, and he's also earned triple certification from the Building Biology Institute, an achievement that underscores his unwavering dedication to creating healthy and sustainable living environments. Brian's passion for building performance is rooted in his lifelong commitment to health, athletic performance, and wellness. And he's an elite top 1% all world athlete. So he intimately understands the crucial role that both physical and environmental factors play in achieving peak performance. Brian's holistic approach to construction seamlessly integrates natural lighting, indoor air quality, and ventilation, as well as the use of non-toxic building materials. And at the core of his philosophy is the implementation of advanced water filtration systems that transform ordinary water into healing water. You can learn more about his work and, hire him to design your home or help, fix your current home at Senergy360.com, Senergy360.com. Brian, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Wendy, for having me here. Good to be here.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? So you've been building homes that are, fire, earthquake, hurricane, which is big bonus, mold resistant, and are some of the most energy efficient homes that you can build. So how did you get started in this business?
Yeah, I mean, good job. You nailed it on all of those, and then some on the type of construction methods that I do. So my background is pretty much right out of high school, got right into the lumber industry, and then from the lumber industry, then I faded into construction. But in 2000 is when I went into home building, and I worked with a builder that actually signed for my license as a general contractor, and I became a general contractor in 2003. But he opened me up into the world of concrete, and was always fascinated with concrete. And I worked in the lumber industry for so long. I went right into building homes, but concrete homes. And back in the day, I used to build these homes, what we refer to as ICF. It's pretty common in the industry today. What ICF stands for is an insulated concrete form. And basically, you stack these homes up like Lego blocks and you fill them full of concrete. Um, Now, kind of fast forwarding today, now that I've learned about everything about healthy building, well, these ICF forms, they're foam. It's a fossil fuel, it's a petroleum based product. And of course, it catches fire, then it becomes toxic, right? And the goal is, we'll talk about this, but is to build non toxic homes. So ICF no longer fits that bill. It has a lot of great attributes. However, manufacturers over the last 20 plus years have manufactured composite versions of these ICF blocks. So now we are truly building using a very similar technology, what we refer to as ICCF, insulated composite concrete form construction. So I was always fascinated with concrete, and to build these robust structures, 12-inch walls. I didn't look at it when I got into the industry back in '03 of actual building these homes in California. I was fascinated that they were fire resistant, um, that they were
Oh, I
hurricane
guess,
resistant.
people
We didn't
are
have hurricanes in California, but we had
yeah.
earthquakes, right?
Yeah, well, people are happy if they have your home. They're happy about that now
Yeah,
with all the
absolutely.
recent
So in
events.
'03, it made a lot of sense, and plus it was energy efficient. But where my career kind of shifted was in '08. I quit building and I just went into concrete. I was doing concrete chemical containment, so chemical exposure, right? Waterproofing systems. So I got to learn a lot through understanding the importance of like waterproofing, and then kind of translates into mold and things like that. But the reason why I got out of ICF back then was because people were looking at it from an energy efficient only. That was it. But at the turn at that time, lumber had dropped, steel had risen, concrete had risen, and it really kind of priced ICF out of the market. So I just kind of put my eggs into a different bag and just kind of went, kept quiet in that industry until I knew that I was going to come back full force and build, the homes that we're building today.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I never really understood why we're building homes out of wood. I mean, it doesn't really make any sense because they can be eaten by termites, they catch fire and they just go up like a cinder block and it gets
Yes.
wet when you're building, that's a problem. And then, the drywall, like I just don't get the drywall, but I like it, but it's prone to mold. I mean, there's just so
Yeah.
many different problems that can occur that create health issues. There's so many people living in sick homes, and
Yep.
the doctors are not really thinking about that or thinking about mold typically or all the issues that can come from living in a toxic home.
Yeah.
So why build a healthy home? So why? What are some of the reasons why some of your sales pitch for building a home like this and kind of going to the expense and
Yeah.
that kind of design?
Like, why are we into health? Why are we into biohacking? Why are we into functional medicine, naturopathic, as these alternatives, right, to a Western approach, is to optimize ourselves and find the underlying root cause, right? So we can heal and then we can thrive. Well, I come from that industry too at the same time because I was really big into health. And so my goal was, people are talking about circadian lighting, people are talking about air filtration, people are talking about indoor air quality, people are talking about VOCs, right? All these things. And we're dealing with all of the issues working with functional medicine and medicine, and we're taking the pill, we're getting the subscription, we're getting on great diets, but we're not fixing it within the home. And everybody's putting kind of putting a band-aid on it, like, well, I'm gonna switch my light bulbs out, or I'm gonna do this air purifier here. And I'm like, with my backgrounding and building, I'm like, no, there is definitely a solution. And it's definitely not going back to wood frame, because I didn't even start off with wood framed homes. I started off with concrete homes, right? And so I knew that moving forward, bringing this forward, to build a healthy home, was we're going to focus on indoor air quality, climate control systems, filtration systems, water filtration systems. We're going to work on safe EMF environments and how we wire the homes. We're going to work on good design of how we design the home, and where we're putting the home. Um, and, all these different facets. Again, non-toxic building, of course, this all started kind of stacking. And so just basically put all that formula together with my background in concrete construction, knowing I'm like, hey, I'm already building a mold resistant structure that's going to withhold earthquakes and hurricanes and all these fires and all these other things. So it was a no brainer. So back in 5 years ago is when I came back into the building industry and built several spec homes of my own. And I spent my own millions. You hear the stories of, people spending millions of biohacking their health and things like that. Mine was literally my own money of building my own spec homes to literally create on my own dime, on my own budget, because I knew these homes were going to be over engineered. And it was probably the start of the biggest success for me because I actually built it. I proved it that it could be done. So all of the builders and people that I showcase these homes to could actually see it, touch it, feel it, understand, going, I want one of those homes. I'm focused on everything outside of the home, but I really want to focus on health within the home. And that's the goal, right? Is we want to build homes that are safe, that they're sanctuaries, that we can actually heal in. So we're not going outside of the home to heal, to go back into the home to get sick. We're actually going into the home to heal.
Yeah, so let's talk about mold because mold is, it's estimated in over 70% of homes. You build a new home, usually within a couple years, it's going to have a mold problem pretty
Yeah.
soon. So what is the genesis of that? Why are homes so prone to mold?
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of going back to the stick frame, methods, paper mache homes, if you will, in the 80s, that's when we're focused on energy efficiency, right? And so homes started getting built tighter and sealed, so sealed, plastic, right? It's plastic on the outside, it's plastic on the inside. And then also too, we're not climatizing, controlling the humidity within that environment. So it's like now you have this environment that the ecosystem is so thrown off, right? When I say ecosystem, I'm talking about balancing the humidity levels and the temperature levels and how we're insulating it from the outside and the delta swing from inside to the outside to the inside of the home. Because then that if you ever see the dew on the windows, from taking a shower and it's cold outside, well, imagine that's just sweating inside of your walls, right? So in a two by, um, a wood framed home, you're going to get a lot of that sweating in the walls because then it can't breathe. And so moving forward on my method of construction, like as far as building like these concrete homes or a rammed earth home or an adobe home, even with all the building materials within the home, we still have to frame up walls on the inside. We still have to use forms of, drywall or, plaster if somebody wants. But the goal is all the materials that we want to use are breathable. So we want to do a design to where we can control that micro environment within the home, the humidity levels, the temperature levels, the ventilation. But we also want to use non-toxic building materials that have a high permeability rate, that are breathable. So when moisture gets in, it's not if, but when it gets in, then it's going to go back out again and not hold on to that to create a moldy environment. And I know it's kind of a long winded story, but that's basically, you want a breathable home. You don't want a home that's sealed up, because if you have a home that's sealed, or even your lumber, comes to the job a lot of the times moldy. They're framing the home up moldy, and then they're framing it up into the rain. They're really not using any good practices to dry the home out before they dry it in and putting the roofing on, and then insulating and doing their siding and all these types of things, right? Then they're just literally embedding that mold right into the home before it's even completed.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, every time I drive by someplace that are building homes, the wood is wet or it's getting wet for weeks and weeks and weeks while during the building process, even if it doesn't show up moldy. Yeah, and then the whole like the insulation drives me nuts when I think about the pour-in insulation or you see like the rollout insulation that's full of fiberglass. Like, I just don't understand that how people put that on their homes.
Yeah. And a lot of the market's cleaning up, and it is getting better, but a lot of your older installations, even like just 5 years back, they had formaldehydes in them. They had all kinds of, different chemicals. They would absorb water, hold water, and then they were full of like paper or cellulose, which is a food source for mold. So as soon as it gets wet, not only is it holding that wetness, but now it's inside of a wall cavity. And then when it reaches that right humidity level, which it will, then that's when you have the mold growth.
If you're taking protein powder, you need to stop and listen to this. So, the Clean Label Project recently tested 160 of the top selling protein powders in the US. So, they tested 83% of the market, which is 70 different brands, and 40% of the products tested exceeded Prop 65 safety thresholds for lead. 21% had more than 2 times the Prop 65 safety thresholds for other heavy metals and toxins. 65% of chocolate protein powders tested over the Prop 65 safety thresholds, and 77% of plant-based protein powders tested above these thresholds as well. That's definitely not what you want from products that are supposed to support your health, particularly it's something that you're consuming daily. What this study found was that Puree's PW1 protein powder was awarded the #1 cleanest protein powder out of 130 different brands. So the choice is clear. That's why I love Puree's PW1 whey protein powder. Every batch is third-party tested against 200 plus contaminants. They don't sell any product unless it passes these tests, and they make all of their third-party tests available via a QR code. So you can scan this QR code and you can see exactly what is in this product and what this batch tested for. No other brand is doing that because they won't pass the test. Each serving gives you 21 grams of minimally processed, clean, high-quality whey protein powder from pasture-raised cow's milk. So no hormones, no GMOs, no pesticides, nothing to worry about. And I personally love the bourbon vanilla flavor. You get real vanilla seeds from bourbon vanilla from Madagascar, which is known as the best vanilla in the world. It's high quality. It tastes amazing. Even my daughter loves it. Even my daughter mentioned how she loves the vanilla flavor in it. And I work with Puree on an amazing deal for you. You can get 20% off, or if you choose the already discounted subscription, you get almost a third off the price. But you're only going to get this deal if you visit my exclusive link at puree.com/Wendy and use coupon code Wendy. So that's PURI.com/Wendy, WENDY, and just use my code Wendy to get 20% off this amazing deal of the highest quality whey protein powder that's been tested for 200 plus contaminants. So you can't beat this for quality. This is my #1 recommendation for protein powder because the results are in. Puree is the #1 cleanest testing protein powder on the market. Yeah. And so let's talk about EMF because this is something that I think a lot of people don't really think of. They don't, people kind of are dabbling with EMF mitigation here and there, but it's interesting to think about starting from the ground up, thinking about what you can do to mitigate EMF before you even start to build. So how do you approach that?
Yeah, my goal is I would like to build homes for anyone across the country, no matter where their environment is. Okay. Now, of course, we're not, going to build under a power line. But the goal is one is know your surrounding, look for the power lines. I know a lot of people do this, 5G cellular search. That's you need a meter for that. That kind of can throw misguided information, So we want to know what the external environment is. And then we find this location, whether it's urban or rural, it doesn't matter with the types of building that I'm going to share here, because the mass wall, which I refer to, by the way, the ICF construction, or rammed earth or adobe is considered a mass wall construction technique. Okay. And so when you have a mass wall of 12 inches thick, because the walls at minimum are 12 inches thick, you don't get the radio frequency wave from like a 5G or a cellular antenna through that wall. It stops it at that wall. Now, It's not going to stop a bunch of power lines, and there's other ways to mitigate that. But again, we want to know and be familiarized with the external environment. Now, building the home from the ground up, as far as EMF, let me share with us. There's four types of EMFs, and I want to break it down. You have electrical field, and that's the 60 hertz cycle of how all of our power comes into our homes. Okay, we can't get away from that. That's what brings the electricity in.
Yeah, and I think people don't realize how EMF the dirty electricity can emit from their walls into their bed while they're sleeping, and they don't, even,
So
yeah,
yes.
like 9 to 12 feet out from your wall.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it just depends. Typically the field is about 24 inches. However, so it can easily extend to 9 feet. And here's how it can extend: a metal bed frame. So now, because so metal's a conductor, we're 80% water or plus, whatever. We become a conductor of this energy, right? Um, and it's not that the energy is bad, it's just we conduct that. So if you have lamps plugged in with outlets, okay, so you have your Romex, you're wiring in the wall, you have a 24-inch kind of a space around that emits a field, but now it goes through the lamps, goes through the power cords, goes into the body, goes through the bed, and now it's reaching out to that 9 feet like you're talking about. And that's what we refer to as the electrical field. Okay. So that's the one form of the EMF. It's electrical fields. The second form, and this is the deadly one, this is the silent killer, and it's AC magnetics. So it's the electrical field, the magnetic field, that if there's certain circumstances on how wiring is done within the home, or even a big power line, the big distribution lines and the transformer lines that you see, or even a transformer or transformer within your kitchen, in your refrigerator. Okay.
Or solar panels
Well,
also.
we'll swing back on that
Yeah,
because
we'll
that's a
get
really
yeah.
big topic. But so these put out what's referred to as an AC magnetic field. Okay. That could be caused by miswiring in the home. And that's the silent killer. That's the one that most of the research is done through, like the Bio Initiative report, that launches thousands of studies on that. Okay. For children linked to leukemia and all these types of things. Okay. Then you have what's the third form, and that's RF. That's the radio frequency. So your cell phone, a wireless phone. Not very many people have wireless phones anymore. A wireless router within the home, of course, 4G, 5G, all the different cellular activity, microwaves. Microwaves put out a high amount. That's why the microwaves are bad. That's an RF. And then the fourth one, and this is kind of the elephant in the room. It's talked about a little bit. People don't quite understand it, and this is going to set us up perfect for solar, and that's DE, dirty electricity, referred to as microelectrical surge pollution, MEP. And what that is caused from is more or less technology. So power supplies that boot up your computer, that power your TV, that power your router, um, the inverters. This is on the solar. There's a big misconception. So solar panels do, because the photovoltaic, the process, it's pulling in the energy from the sun and it's converting it to a DC, which is a direct current. Okay. There's no field from a DC. It's a direct current. But through the photovoltaic process, there's a small field of a slight radiation to it, but it's a narrow field. Okay. Where the misconception is, a lot of it is how that power is being distributed from DC to AC, and it's what we refer to as the inverter. So this power gets changed to AC to power the home. Then what it does is, a lot of these inverters, they put out dirty electricity, high levels of MEP. And what happens is it rides the whole electrical system of the house. And so you're talking about coming through the walls. That's because it's riding onto the electrical field of the wiring. Okay. So your whole house is just full of all of this DE. Now, um, we can control that. And so when I'm designing a home, I'm good with solar because I already know what solar does, and the cleanest ways to get clean energy and be off the grid if you want, is all through the inversion process. And I can put out the cleanest AC electricity that's in the industry, hands down, period. So it's easy to design it. But now here's the caveat: you have neighbors. Say you're even in a neighborhood and you decide to build on a lot and there's homes around you. Okay. Well, your neighbors have these solar panels and they have dirty inverters and pool pumps and all kinds of technology. Well, their dirty power is going onto the grid, going right into your house. And so there's ways that we can that we can mitigate and do these whole house. It's like a surge protector, like a very large surge protector specifically geared to absorb that energy of coming into the home. So there's things that we can do to mitigate that. But from a wiring infrastructure of the house, then we're just very mindful of where we're routing the wires, good design, making sure that the power panels are away from sleeping rooms. Um, Getting back to the power piece of the inverter, I work with several companies that have power management systems, and this is really cool for your audience. This is a huge takeaway for everybody that listens to this right now. Before I used to do a kill switch on the bedroom. So you could go in your bedroom, you could just hit the kill switch, and what that does is it turns off all your 110 circuits to your bedroom. So you're completely in this, non-EMF environment of your bedroom. Okay. Assuming we built this concrete home and it's protecting us from all these different things and good design, and we can mitigate other things if anyone has questions. But so now with these power management systems that are putting out clean power, what it'll do is it'll detect if a circuit is being utilized. And they look at it more from an energy management and savings. But by default, what they've created is a low EMF environment, because what it does is it kills the power to the circuit automatically.
Oh,
It's
what
awesome.
an amazing idea.
And when I approach these companies, I'm like, do you realize what you've just created in the healthy home building industry? That you killed the circuit. They're like, yeah. So I mean, we're just doing it because we're saving power, and it's a smart management system. So if you're on solar, it's going to detect if it's wasteful power, and it's just going to kill the circuit. I'm like, yeah, but now you just killed all the EMF to the environment.
Yes, it's
So
great because even if people don't realize when you have an appliance plugged in, but it's not even on, you're still getting that dirty electricity that's
yeah,
leaking.
there you have it. Yeah, and so the good point there too, because so say we've cleaned it up, we've built this great infrastructure, and we bring in our, whatever Viking refrigerators and whatever technologies are out there. Well, even a refrigerator will put out a little bit of DE. It can, not all of them. Now we have the situation with induction cooktops. I've measured induction cooktops that measure higher magnetics and radio frequency than a microwave. So you really have to kind of be mindful about, hey, I'm switching from gas because I'm going to go to induction cooktop because it's safer, because the air quality, because the gas, if it puts out, carbon dioxide and monoxide in the environment, because I don't have the right proper hood that's pulling all the fumes out from cooking all the oils at 100, 80 degrees, but that's still going to happen on an induction cooktop. Anyway, sorry, digress from that whole aspect, but the technologies do create some interference. And so even though we still are filtering it and creating this perfect environment from a DE standpoint, there's techniques that we do to actually help clean up the power within that based on the technologies, or just identify the technologies and put them on a kill switch.
Yeah.
Well, with the exception of your refrigerator. So
Yes, yes. Yeah,
yeah.
and so is that someone can get if they say their home's already built, can they get technology like that to kind of fix
Yeah,
with
yeah,
their environment?
yeah. There's a lot of stuff out there now in the healthy home building industry and the building biology industry, and the EMF world of microsurge protection filters, and things that we can do. But you got to really know what you're looking for, because even the manufacturers, what they'll do is they'll sell you $100 meter. You plug it in your wall, and it's just giving you one form of a frequency, because it's a broad range of frequencies. It's harmonics. What MEP, sorry, I should have said this at the beginning, more, it's harmonics. It's line noise. It's literally noise. And so people, well, what's a byproduct of how is DE going to affect us? And it's going to stress the central nervous system, period. That's what it does, because it puts out line noise, and it's kind of like the flickering light you can't see. That's exactly what DE is. It's the audible sound that's riding on this wave that we can't hear, but the central nervous system picks up on that, and it creates a stressor. Some people that are very sensitive can hear that. And so they sell these meters that you plug in, and all it does is it just gives you a low frequency. More than likely, it's going to tell you there's dirty electricity in the house. but it doesn't tell you the full spectrum of that. So, like, for example, when I go do my assessments, I use an oscilloscope with a very advanced meter that measures the full scope because I want to know, is it coming from an AM radio, an FM radio? Is it coming from a certain technology? And so, with more sophisticated equipment, like a building biologist or somebody like myself, we can go in there and literally pinpoint every device in the home that's creating that MEP problem. So, definitely you want to consult with somebody, instead of just plugging a meter and start popping all these, filters in all over. You want to consult with somebody to understand that. But yes, there's definitely solutions.
Yeah, and what about the smart meters in the home? Because nowadays most people have replaced their analog meter that someone comes and checks every month with the
Mhm.
smart meter. So how do you address that?
Yeah. So the smart meters for me, again, and good design, um, we're going to, you can try to opt out, but some cities don't even offer the opt out. And the opt out is you keep your analog meter and you pay $20 more a month and they manually read the meter. But if you do have a smart meter, ideally it's away from the home. So hopefully if you have the luxury of designing and building your home, more than likely your power panel also is going to be at the garage or, a service area. So it's away from the home. But what it does, it has a radio chip in it and it sends out they're all so different. Like say every 30 seconds, it'll just send out a very high powered blip of a signal that's RF. Okay. And say there was an apartment I drove by the other day, meeting a friend, and unfortunately the person that lived in this one apartment had the bank of all 8 meters on a wall. And I was just hoping it wasn't a livable wall behind that. I wouldn't think that they would do that. I don't think they do. But they're also every 30 seconds or 1 minute or whatever, they're getting blipped at all kind of different times. So in that case, that's not too healthy, right? Because you're getting the RF goes right through the wall back into the home. And so you're constantly hit with these blips. It's a short signal, it's like a millisecond long. But if it's distance from the house in an open area, the RF it goes out. It doesn't really have a chance to reflect and magnify its signal and kind of bounce back to you. The signal, believe it or not, in an external environment drops pretty rapidly. Now, I'm not condoning any favorism of that, but I do want to share that if it's distanced, you don't know until you have a meter that measures it. You have to have the right type of meter to know what's the power of the signal and how far is it dropped off before, is it even getting into the home? Okay. So I know there's a lot of fear around that. Um, and there's a lot of bigger things that we should be concerned about than a small blip, unless it's, again, if it's on your bedroom wall and it's going right in, then there's things that we can do to shield. There's different screens like a Faraday cage or different paints, draft light paints that you can shield. There's definitely things that you can do for sure around that, but you really kind of want to measure to know, is it really affecting you? They make Faraday cages too as well, that you can just slide over your meter. That's a good recommendation too. Maybe we'll put that in the show notes of a company if you don't have one that you promote. Just, there's several that I work with. It's a cage. It literally just goes right over your meter.
I want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors today. It's True Energy Skincare. And this is the skincare line that I'm using. And they have an amazing product out. It's called the Energy Optimized Body Sculpting Stone that you see right here. And also, I love their refreshingly revitalizing hand and body lotion. I use this every single day. This is part of my nightly routine, using the sculpting stone and the body lotion. And so I love True Energy Skincare, and the sculpting system. It's called the True Energy Body Sculpting System. It's designed to support lymphatic detox and fascia repair. And the protocol targets the acupressure points to activate the body's natural detox pathways. So what I'm doing every night is putting the lotion on, and then I go over my whole body a few times with this stone. And you go over your entire body, and they have a little, information kit to guide you on what to do. And this stone, it's made of natural bion stone, and it's energy optimized with True Energy's proprietary biophoton frequencies. And so we sometimes refer to them as beauty frequencies. helping to communicate to the body at a cellular level to act as if it's young again. So it's sending new information, it's sending frequencies to your skin to improve collagen, improve elasticity, help with lymphatic flow, and help with, flushing and detoxification of your skin. And when paired with the bioactive functional hand and body lotion, it enhances hydration, it combats dullness, and brings out a healthy glow. And the lotion, it's also energy optimized with the same proprietary frequencies, using a little green bead inside it that it has all the frequencies imprinted on it. And so this powerful combo is ideal for those dealing with premature skin aging, cellulite, feeling bloated or swollen, and all the signs often linked to stagnant lymph flow and toxin buildup. So you can get this duo at trytrueenergy.com/Wendy-2. So again, it's trytrueenergy.com/Wendy-2. And so you can get this combo at that link. And again, I do this every single night. I'm absolutely in love with True Energy skincare because everything I do in my life is frequency based. So you guys know that listening to the show, I'm obsessed with bioenergetics. I've got bioenergetic software running, but I just everything I do has frequencies imprinted on it, and everything that I use that includes my skincare. I cannot recommend True Energy highly enough. Okay, great. And so you build, homes from the ground up, and do you come in and consult with people to make their existing home healthy as well?
Yeah, that's prime. It's turned out to be most of my business. So I went from proactively building um to doing these home assessments, and I go all over. Like, I have a lot of projects in Florida. Florida's a pretty popular spot for me. New York seems to be a spot. Texas, I seem to go to Texas a lot. I'm in California a lot as well. So what I do is I travel out, and it usually takes 1 to 2 days to do an assessment, but it's like a home inspection on steroids. It's like, you can't even, it's apples to oranges on the type of the inspections that I do, right? So I start off from the roof. I start off from the external environment, like we talked about, identifying the source. Where's the power lines? Where's everything coming in from? Then, from an EMF perspective, also too, just looking at the grading, making sure, do we have grade issues? The water, is water draining into the home instead of away from the home? Do we have good drains and things like that, and good gutters, and are we sheeting the water away? But then I jump into the inside of the house, and then now that I know what the EMFs are outside, then I go to the inside, and then so what I do is I start point sourcing, and I start looking for any kind of direct correlation if there's an EMF issue within the home. And of course, I'm looking at the grade, water, windows. Is there water penetration penetrating through the seals of the window, through the manufacturer, the way that it was designed? Jumping up in attics, crawl spaces if they exist. Taking high powered lights and infrared guns, and looking at the drywall, looking for bubbling infrared to see if there's any, what the color, what an infrared gun does. People talk about this. It's just telling you the color differentiation of out, like, so you can tell if the house has good insulation or not. You can tell if air is circulating good or not. And the only way to really catch an active leak is if it's an active leak from a pipe, or if you have a rain, and then you could do thermal imaging to kind of find these things. We're doing mold, of course, the mold testing. We won't get too far in that, but all the way from air pumps to MSQ PCR, ERMI test, endotoxin, mycotoxin, surface sampling testing into the mold realm. Again, we want to look at the building first. First things first. We want to see what's the mechanics of the building, to the design, the roof, all these types of things. Then we get into the whole mold factor if that's a concern for the client. And then, of course, the indoor air quality. That's a big one. Looking at all the HVAC handling equipment or whatever is distributing the air. The filtration. Are we bypassing filtration? Is the dust pores getting into the whole system and contaminating the whole environment? Are we getting fresh air into that environment using things such as HRV or ERVs, that's heat recovery ventilator or an energy recovery ventilator? Are we bringing that fresh air in? Are we filtering that air? Do we have good HEPA filtration, like medical grade filtration coming into the air handling system to distribute this like pure air? Is all of the millwork from all the cabinetry, all the paint, all the wood flooring that we put in, is it emitting VOCs, volatile organic compounds, and formaldehydes and other types of chemicals? These are all the things that I do in an inspection. And also, too, I do a lot of project management. So I work with a lot of architects and design, so all I do is I just bring in the specifications of all the technologies of kind of various things that we've talked about so far on this call. But what I do is I bring that to the architect. So the architect can embed that into their plans and to their design. And so when it goes out to bid to the builder has somewhat of an understanding going, okay, hey, I understand. I see these different specifications. And this is big for the builder because all the building materials that I'm specifying, these are practical materials that you can get at a building supply warehouse. This isn't something being made in another country or, has to be harvested in a full moon or anything like that. These are products that are readily available. And it's really good to ensure for our general contractors out there because if we just go to them without an architect and say, we want you to build us a healthy home, the builder's gonna be like, what is a healthy home? What does that even mean? Like, where do I even begin? And so through this beautiful process, working with an architect, building the specifications in, and then what I do is I actually help manage the project on behalf of the client, but I give support for the general contractor to walk them through the entire process and give them the support and everything they need to build a healthy home.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I can just see you working with people that have no idea what any of this means or why you would even want to bother doing it. And people just they just don't think about these things at all. At
It's
all.
it's crazy, because I'm so into it, right? So for me, it's like the norm. But then when you get out there, we get outside of our bubble of what we do, and we find out that it's not the norm. But it's great because it's challenged me to really learn how to speak the language of construction, but health and technology, and really put it together in a beautiful package to the contractors. So, like, if I'm working with electricians, we're looking at forms of EMFs. We don't need to go down to the rabbit hole what they are, but this is what they are, from a layman's terms, and all electricians going, okay, yeah, yeah, I understand, I get that. Well, well, we're just going to wire it this way because of what it does is it eliminates X, Y, and Z. And they're like, oh, never really thought about it that way, right? So then it's like the light bulb goes off on their head. So the more that we educate all the trades, not just it's down to the labor. Why is the labor wiring, pulling cables a certain way, or whatever the case may be. So they have a clear understanding about what they're doing, right? And of course, the GC having a very clear understanding and support. So I do speak that language. And it's awesome because I found in the last 5 years since I've started back into this, that I would say 70 to 80% of the contractors have been very receptive, and the willingness to learn has been amazing. It's been a great. I was really skeptical. A lot of friends that know me well, they're like, "Hey, good luck on your new healthy home building endeavor," and within the construction industry because they know what the pushback's gonna be. It's like a holistic home. What the heck is that? But no, it hasn't been that bad, and the other 20% are, they're just skeptical throughout, and it's too bad. It's you hope it's like you're literally giving them everything to pass the torch on to the next job that they build, with working with the next client. And but I think that's going to change again, as we educate and this becomes more mainstream. Contractors are going to be more conscientious. This is going to be talked about. There's going to be a higher demand to build healthy homes.
Yeah, and let's talk about lighting because I don't think people realize how much lighting affects their health and their circadian rhythm management and their ability to sleep at night, which is the whole foundation of their health. So it's really important to pay attention to this. And I'm just so happy that Trump is bringing back incandescent bulbs because I hate the LED bulbs that are just
Mhm.
all this blue light, making you release cortisol. I hate the fluorescent lights. I just want the
Right,
old school Edison bulbs. Just let me at it.
right.
Yeah, so let's talk about lighting. So what
Oh
do you do
yeah.
with lighting in a home?
Oh, I love it. I get to maybe help convert you even on this call of LED. So yeah, no,
The only reason I don't like the LED is because the ones you buy at the grocery store are pure blue light, correct?
okay, yeah. So I do post about this on my Instagram account, and it was funny just recently. I'm like, people are like, man, just do some simple videos. You're going so far deep on the stuff, you're losing your audience, right? And so I'm like, okay. So I go into a Home Depot, and well, so the story is, I go into a Home Depot, I do a video, it'll be on there, people will be able to see it. But what I do is I point out the color temperatures, and that's what we're referring to. But there's more to it. I'll kind of back up on this one. But so I talk about the color temperatures, and so if you, because it's all LED, so if you are wanting to support your circadian rhythm from a temperature, right, a color frequency, then you would pick like an 1800K Kelvin, which is the temperature. Then you would put
And
these warmer.
that's an orange bulb, right? Or
Yeah,
they
it's
call it
more
an
of an orange, kind of an
amber.
amber, correct. Or if you want daylight, like a 5000K, which is that's going to be the blasting blue light that you're talking about. Okay, that's like some people's, that there's lights and it's like, oh my god, it just burns my brains out. Um, so let me, so I do a lot of stuff where I try to make it practical, because then you tie in a dimmer to an LED. Now you've got the flip. So not only twofold here, not only you creating a flicker on the bulb, right? Because the sun doesn't flicker, it's not natural. And that's a concern of flickering, because again, it stresses out the central nervous system, right? There's all the studies been done in the 80s, and it's part of my problem still from being all under the fluorescent lights, and elementary school or high school. But um, so we've really understand the studies there, but also too, you're putting a lot of dirty electricity. Dimmers do a lot of dirty electricity, everyone, just so you know that.
Well, light bulbs can emit a tremendous amount of EMF as well. I know the LEDs can as well, depending on the type.
Yeah, it's interesting. That goes really deep into it,
Yeah.
and there's very few meters in the world that can even measure that, by the
Mm.
way. So but anyways, so let me go back to kind of the beginning of, so incandescents also can flicker too, but they always have that warmer temperature to them regardless, even if we went 100 watt, daylight bulb or something like that, people are still putting them on dimmers. Okay. And on a flood lamp, and it carries a nice soft light, didn't really have any of the blue spectrum anyways. Okay. So that's why incandescent has such a good rap to it, because it's just a successful light, but it's over 100 years old. We've outgrown that. And so 20 years ago, when LED really starts hitting the market, right? Nobody understood it, right? They're just pumping out all these light bulbs, 5K, 6K, 3800K, and contractors are picking them up from their suppliers and their Home Depots, and they're just putting all these LED, these nice, flush mounted, lights throughout the home in a modern home, and putting them on a dimmer on top of that. And it's like, they're just not even they don't even know, because they're not even picking the right temperatures, or even some that do know, they'll have the temperatures, but it was just not a good program. It wasn't a very smooth transition. However, they were doing a lot of studies higher up, even before the US Green Building Council came out, and all these different councils, they were doing study on lighting, for like hospitals, for different types of hospitals, right, for care and things like that, for extended, and they knew that blue flickering light was an issue. So the industry started addressing circadian, uh, probably about 15 years back. Okay. And so there was like circadian applications. And so what the circadian, just a real simple, my version of the explanation is you have the temperature. So we have say the sun rises at 1800K, which is a warmer temperature. High noon, it goes to, I think, even 10K or above, and it has actually a blue spectrum to it. It's a very bright with a blue. So it's activating serotonin, right? Suppressing melatonin, which is good. You want that too, right? Because that's the natural light and this whole circadian role. And then, of course, the sunset at 1800K. Again, that orange, amber, it's calming, it's slowing down the whole, serotonin and activating melatonin, right, preparing us for sleep. Okay. And it doesn't flicker. um so understanding that is also the nanometer wavelength, and I know you're all into this too. So from more of your bluer spectrums, you're all the way down to like 380 nanometers. So this is a chart, it's a nanometer wavelength chart. Okay. um, all the way into ultraviolet, or excuse me, infrared, um, light that you can't see on that spectrum reaches all the way up to say like almost like a 900 nanometers. You can't see it, right? And a lot of the lights that we see today, the circadian lights, there's different companies that are doing some cool lights and whatnot, but they're matching like this, say this high 600 to like a 700 nanometer. So what they're doing is they're adjusting the color temperature and they're adjusting the nanometers. That's it. That's the physics of the light. Um, so, but unfortunately, LED gets a bad rap because of what I was just explaining. Like the people were putting them on, putting the right temperatures in there. The frequencies were just off. They're putting them on dimmers. It was just a bad combination, right? So moving forward, I said when I got back into the business and knowing that I was coming in this from a wellness application, of course, Circadian was a big one. Everyone has their blue blockers on, and put people are screwing in red light bulbs, and everyone's wanting incandescence. And I'm like, no, there's something so much better than this. So I actually introduced circadian lighting from LED from the more of the commercial application, bringing it into residential, because there's a big disconnect from commercial to residential. If you're a commercial contractor, you don't want nothing to do, and it's vice versa. But the worlds don't really mix. It's starting to change now. So what I did is I just took the world of commercial circadian applications and then I brought it into the residential sector. Let me take it. This is really cool. You're going to appreciate this. So through all of my work, because I'm a researcher myself, it's my job to research all these different materials and all these different systems to be able to share this information. But it never stops, right? But what's beauty about this is one relationship, one exploration builds to the next, builds to the next, and builds to until eventually you understand every technology that's almost out there. I'm talking modern technology that's available to commercial or residential construction. Okay. Then I stumbled upon a company called Colorbeam. And a lot of people will hear me talking about Colorbeam. And what Colorbeam did 15 years ago, this is genius. This is a super cool takeaway for everybody. They took their lighting system that's a 110-volt lighting system, because you still have, so if you have a two-story home or single story, whatever, and you have the can light, recessed light, you still have 110 volts going to it when it's on. Your bed above on the second story sits right on top of all this lighting if you didn't do the layout right. Okay. So you're around all this EMF. So the goal is we want to minimize, nature's the gold standard. We're trying to minimize the EMF. Kind of this ties into the EMF piece. So what they did, they're like, well, we just want to make it easier for our installers. So we're going to take all of our light and power it with a Cat 6 cable, an Ethernet cable. That's how they power their light. It's a low voltage. There's no EMF that goes to that line. All their controllers, the way that they control the light is on a Cat 6 cable. So now here they've created a whole infrastructure of a lighting system on a low voltage system. It's genius what they did by doing that, because they've eliminated the high voltage for everything. But also they went a degree further, because they were in the luxury sector, so they were working on luxury homes, but they were also doing a lot of work, for like recording studios and of audio visual and things like that. So the lighting had to be very precise, very precise. So they could adjust the nanometer, the temperatures. It's all built right into the chipset, right into the LED bulb. So now they've they're meeting the circadian aspect, but also they couldn't have a flicker. So the flickering through the system comes through how they convert the power in their power adapter to it's called a DMX controller. Well, what they do is they decouple any dirty electricity from the power adapter through the coupler into the whole infrastructure to where there's no line noise. So now we don't have any dirty electricity. We don't even have any high voltage. It's all 100% low voltage. We don't have flicker. And they've dialed the circadian aspect of light to the finest degree of science. They actually hire circadian biologists that actually do their circadian studies for them third party, so they have that third party data to share. It's awesome.
I want to say a couple words about one of our Myers Detox podcast sponsors, Qualia Senolytic. So it's a cutting edge formula designed to help your body eliminate senescent cells, also known as zombie cells. So these outdated cells, they hang around, draining your energy and slowing your workout recovery and causing all kinds of havoc and mayhem. So, backed by clinical research, Qualia Senolytic uses 9 plant-based compounds that support joint comfort, sharper focus, and better aging naturally. And here's the kicker: you only have to take it 2 days a month. Simple, backed by science, validated by research. You can try it risk-free with a 100-day money-back guarantee. Go to qualialife.com/Wendy. That's QUALIA life.com/Wendy and use code Wendy to get 15% off. You want to try Qualia Senolytic. This is something that I've been taking. It's part of my anti-aging protocol because getting older doesn't have to feel like it. Oh, wow. Yeah, I need to up my game in my home. Clearly. I'm like, well, I thought I was doing pretty good. I got the hearth lights and I thought I was doing great.
Well, that's why I'm here, is to
It's
bring
a,
the information to the forefront.
yeah, it's a
Like,
start. The hearth lights are a
yeah,
start.
yeah.
They're
Well, there's other companies, just to throw a shout out to names out there, and I have no affiliate associations. I help consult with a lot of these companies, but blue blocker lights, they came out with a really cool system. You just toggle the switch 3 times. So you get rid of the dimmer, you toggle the switch 3 times, and it does 3 different light settings. Goes from 18 to like 25 to 3,800 or something like that. So that's and they did a really nice job of their different selections. So they have flood lamps, they have the regular light bulb, they have new can for like remodel or new construction. So I think they really took it to the highest degree, is converting an LED to like a safe light that doesn't flicker, that's non-EMF. So blue blocker lights is a good one, on a budget.
okay, great. And are you saying you recommend like the LED lights that are at Home Depot? I mean, do those pose
Yeah,
an
so
issue?
I've measured. That's a good question. Thank you for bringing that up, because I actually talk about it also in a video. I have a high dollar. It's a photospectrometer, and it measures all these nanometers. It measures the frequencies. It measures the flicker rate, the temperatures. It's a very expensive meter, and so of course I geek out and I have fun. I love meters, right? And so I'll take the meters to Home Depots. I have my own shop. I bring lights and I'll test them. And I was actually shocked. Even these consumer grade lights, these new. I've tested more of just the vintage ones. The see through. It has like the really cool filaments in them, to it looks like it's an old Edison light bulb, kind of a thing. So I've measured those, the clear ones, uh, on not on a dimmer, just on an on and off switch, and the flicker rate's really low. It's extremely low. They have a very low flicker rate, and the temperatures, like on their vintage, they call it their vintage. Like if a I'm just going to use Home Depot for example. There's one called the vintage, and the vintage bulb has like an 1800K. It's spot on. There's no blue spectrum in it or anything. So you can go right here to Home Depot and buy the bulbs right off the shelf too. I measured them. I know. So
Okay, great. Yeah, so there's a lot of hysteria over nothing, over the LED bulbs.
well, only because, and I definitely don't want to downplay it, but because there was a merger of trying to get the technology figured out. It's not like people carry around a $3,000 photospectrometer, a biohacker builder geek like me, and it's going to go around here and start measuring all this stuff, right? So, so
Okay,
yeah,
great.
no, there's a lot of technology that's out there that's safe, in my opinion.
Okay, great. And then let's talk about water filtration because there's a lot of people that have little water filters in their sink, but I don't think they realize how important it is to do water filtration for their entire home because taking a shower every day or more than once a day, you're getting a lot of exposure in the water and the steam that you're breathing in. And can you talk about that?
Absolutely. I love water filtration. I work with a company, Natural Actions. I found Jonathan Butts, the owner, 5 years ago at a biohacking conference. And as a builder, I'm kind of starting to put together my manufacturer's list of technologies that I wanted to have approach of whole home. So I'm a builder, right? So everything for me is whole home. It's just not point of use. It's the whole entire home. And Natural Actions has a whole house structuring device. It's really cool. In my opinion, it's like one of the most powerful ones called the MR24, the Magnarain. It has these polar magnets in it that are all tuned and dialed, and it puts all this energetic frequency. You know what's crazy. But anyways, they developed that for the whole house. So you got your line coming in the house, and you're structuring it. Now, Natural Actions, they did high level filtration, but for like hemp farms and industrial. They didn't really, they wanted to do the structured devices for portable. They wanted to do a structuring device so people could structure the water. So the whole idea of structuring the water is to bring it back to that coherent state, right? To how it absorbs into the body, how it communicates, and it basically kind of imparts this good frequency and all the things. I know all that stuff, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners, know a lot about this. Not to get too much into that, but from a watering structuring standpoint, what I loved is that they literally had one ion chamber. It was a 1-inch line, and so you'd literally bring the plumbing right into it, right back out, and you're literally structuring all the water for the whole house. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And so I invited and worked with them on developing a whole house filtration system. And through that, just to kind of share with the audience here, that it's definitely not just a one approach fits all sizes. We have different cities full pull from different wells, different times of the years. Their water profile is always changing, and of course, we're not going to rely on their results on what they share with the public, right? Um, and then we have well water, different depths, different places across the country, means different, organic materials, uranium, arsenic, mercury, all these different things that are on the water table, right? And so every project that we work with is we're doing water tests. First and foremost, everyone, you have to test your water. One is we want to know what the profile, what's the total dissolved solids, what's the pH, what's the hardness. There's the THMs, there's all these different things that we're looking at as the water profile itself. Then we look at, what's the list of all the inorganic types of materials that are in the water. So if it's from the city, it's going to be the fluoride. It's going to be all the disinfectants, all the different types of disinfectants that they're putting back into the water, right? So we're looking at the profile, but we're also looking at what's in the water. And so that's why it's really good to do in the test. But there's only so many filter manufacturers out there in the world. And what I really like about Natural Actions is they really sourced and work with the best filter manufacturers right here in the country. This isn't, other country kind of knockoff stuff that you're going to get on Amazon. This is high level filtration. So basically, what they do is they'll select based upon the water profile. Okay, it's going to be this kind of a carbon filter. It's going to be a nanocarbon. It's going to be a nanoceram, which is going to pull out bacteria, cysts, all types of parasites, things that are in the water, right? So they have multi-stage units. So it goes through different levels of pre-filter, or even if there's an iron issue, we run into a lot of iron issues, but iron bacteria issues. Their specialist even gets on with the well companies and, take different approaches on how to shock wells. I mean, they go really, really far with this. So it's custom designing a filtration system that's structured. And also, too, they use technology for like passive. This is a really cool one for the audience here. I know this is long, but um, water hardness, is typically treated with a water softener, with salts, heavy metals, taking all the calcium, dumping sodium, which isn't good like on copper plumbing. There's just all kinds of reasons. And there's just so much better technology out there than a water softener. But they have passive, these catalytic they're magnetic array chambers that the water goes through, and it changes the whole structure of the water and it softens it. So it's a conditioner. So it gets conditioned. So say we have a water hardness issue, the water gets conditioned, or whatever the case is going on prior to filtration, goes through this level of filtration for any size home. By the way, let me bring in the engineering aspect. So we always have to look at pressure, and we always have to look at flow rates, which is gallons per minute. We want to know what's the size of the line coming in home, what's the size of the home, what's the demand of water usage for the home. Because talking about under sink, like ROs and things like that, you can do an under sink RO and it has the little faucet like you see on top, and it just comes out in a trickle, right? That's because the water can only filter at such a high rate. So I'm kind of painting a picture here. Can you imagine if you had to have a whole house RO to put the pressure that everybody wants, their convenience in the showers and dishwashers and washer machines and things like that, right? You would have to have a very big system. Let me talk about RO since I kind of went down that rabbit hole. The thing about RO, reverse osmosis, versus just your standard type of mechanical filtration, like I started out with. RO is going to take out, it's they claim 99.999%. I mean, that's a pretty tall claim, and maybe you could do that directly under a sink, but from a whole solution, you're not going to be able to get 99.999%, but definitely it'll advance more than just a standard mechanical filtration. However, you've got flow rates that's a concern, you got price point that's a concern, and then also you've taken that water, you've stripped it completely of everything, no mineral, no coherence. It's kind of in a dead, dormant state, if you will. And that's all you have. And so I'm sure a lot of your clients understand that, like, hey, with RO, we know, of course, we remineralize it, we do all these things. So that we do, Natural Actions does a lot of custom design systems where they'll design a big, large RO on a large scale, but they do remineralization as a big key to that. And then also to restructuring the water, putting it back to its coherent state again. It's quite a process. It's expensive, but I started off with kind of the basics of what we see more of, unless somebody has the price point to go to a full system RO. RO gets the bad name, gets a bad rap for it wastes water too. So you're wasting water, you're stripping the water of everything, and then it's unstructured. So those are kind of like the three downfalls to RO. But again, I just give solutions that you can unwind that or undo that. It's just, it gets costly.
So for anyone listening that really wants to detox their body, go to heavymetalsquiz.com. I created a quiz for you. It only takes a couple of seconds. Based on some lifestyle questions, you can get your toxicity score and get a free video series that answers all of your frequently asked questions about how to detox your body. Check it out, heavymetalsquiz.com. Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure everyone listening is thinking, God, my house is a disaster. My house is like not even coming close to any of these, preferred specifications and for non-toxic homes. But that's why I want to do this show to help people. It's almost like health porn where you're like, oh, this is like the top of the line that you can get to, you want to achieve. But it's just we all have to have some goals in life.
That you brought up an interest. You brought up. Sorry I just had to share this piece. You brought up an interesting. It's like here I'm sharing all this information, and but it's out there, right? Like I'm just bringing it out. It's there. It's if we have the budgets for it. But however, when I kind of going back to that specification, like so when I'm working with the architects and I'm writing out the specs and the technology, I always do give a good, better, or best. So I was glad that you said that, because I don't want to scare everybody to think, oh, this is so price point. This is out of my budget. Like, I'm not going to be able to afford this. Well, in my spec list, again, I'm just giving, hey, this at least meets the non-toxic guideline, or, it's a safe wiring method, or it's a, safe light bulb, whatever, right? All the way to, the elaborate building materials that are non-toxic, that are breathable, the concrete methods of construction that I'm talking about, all the way to the color beam lighting systems, so I do give a full array, because we can always start off, smaller, especially if we're on a budget. We could start off less. And also too, we can prioritize, so if a client's like, hey, look, EMF, yeah, I mean, we want to look at everything, right? But if EMF is the biggest concern, let's put more money into the EMF and less money into the lighting. And that's if somebody's building, they're like, hey, we value the idea of this mass wall construction because there's no air cavity into it. We can eliminate mold and just do a good roofing system. That's in no EMF. That's our concern. So everything's value engineered, to make this obtainable for everybody. Even in a renovation, we do a lot of renovation work. Everything that I talked about in construction can be done in renovation as well.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Well, Brian, thanks so much for coming on the show. Why don't you tell us what your website is and how people can work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is spelled Synergy, Source Energy. So it's SENERGY 360.com, Synergy360.com. And also Instagram. I've been working on being more proactive and getting more videos out there, to educate everybody. And Instagram, same thing. It's Synergy, SENERGY 360. That's the best way. And of course, message me. Definitely reference the show. You can schedule, you can message me. We will definitely connect. So absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, Brian, thanks for coming on the show. And everyone, thank you so much for listening to the Myers Detox podcast every week. I'm Dr. Wendy Myers and love bringing you guys lots of this health porn to help you, have a goal. We all need to have a goal, right? That we need to work towards. But I'd love to give you information to seriously to help you, achieve the health that you deserve. Because I know a lot of people are living in sick homes and really don't have any awareness around that. And so hopefully this show gave you some ideas as to what the problems might be. So thanks for tuning in every week. God bless.
The Myers Detox Podcast is created and hosted by Wendy Myers. This podcast is for information purposes only. Statements and views expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Wendy Myers and the producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.